2020年，英国面临多重挑战，先是年初正式脱欧，紧接着新冠疫情来袭，其抗疫举措引爆国际舆论。时至今日，英国疫情状况如何？中英抗疫有哪些故事？脱欧后，英国会有什么变化？中英合作屡遭美国阻拦，英国如何应对？凤凰网外交官访谈录带着这些问题对话英国驻华大使伍百纳女士。
These days, the British government said the lockdown will be ended in July. But some scientists said, no, that's a premature policy, and we should wait for the herd immunity. So what's your opinion towards that?
Like everyone around the world, we are trying to work out the best way to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. And our ambition in the UK is to save lives and to save livelihoods. So, of course, we want to protect lives, but we want to protect people's jobs and our economy too. So we're trying to find a way through the pandemic which allows us to do that. We've been very reliant on the science, and so our intention is to begin opening up the economy gradually. So we have some schools, some restaurants, some family reunions starting again. But our intention is to keep the reproduction rate, the R rate for the disease, below 1. And if we can proceed with our opening up and keep the R rate below 1, we'll carry on. But if it goes above 1, then we'll go back a bit and tighten things up. But as I say, our intention is to protect lives and livelihoods. We've got a new app coming on stream, which we hope will help people monitor their social interactions. So that will help us, in turn, keep ahead of the development of the R reproduction rate of the disease.
So let's turn to the cooperation between Britain and China. Could you share with us some stories, the most impressive story you have heard, you have experienced during this crisis?
Yeah. So I would say that UK-China cooperation and the UK-China relationship has proved very resilient and has grown deeper during this crisis. And I often use the model of the Chinese three-legged pot, the ding, as an analogy here. So I would say the first leg of the ding pot, a lot of really strong government-to-government work. And alongside that, there's been a lot of business cooperation. Our trade and investment relationship was already very strong. It topped 100 billion last year. But what we've seen in the last few months is that we have been able to source in China a lot of personal protection equipment that we've needed for our NHS, PPE, here in China. So I think the business relationship has proved very resilient. But most importantly, the people-to-people relationship has proved very strong. We've had generous donations from Chevening students in China for British people. We've seen British primary school children singing songs and writing messages to people of Wuhan. Businesses have donated kit into China, and we've seen Chinese people donate many things to the UK. So I think overall the relationship has done very well. There's obviously more to do, and we need to look forwards. So I think two big areas of cooperation. First is we're all, of course, working towards trying to find a vaccine for the disease. We've got strong, as you said, scientific cooperation between the UK and China. And I've recently been talking to AstraZeneca about their collaboration with Oxford University and what they're doing. And we're following very closely Chinese vaccines going to clinical trials. So I think that's really important. We've also been working closely with China in preparation for our hosting of the Gavi Summit later this week, but we can come on to that. So overall, I think that UK-China cooperation, in particular in science, has been very strong throughout the last few months.
I see you have recorded a greeting video to Wuhan and on Weibo. Yes, you may have many friends in Wuhan.
Well, I'm very lucky because actually Wuhan was the first city that I lived in when I first came to China in 1986. And I taught English there, so I lived in the city for a year. So I have a deep affection for Wuhan, and I have many personal friends there.
I see some UK politicians said they expected reckoning on China, which means they want to claim compensation with China. So I want to know how about the British public opinion towards that?
in general the relationship is in very good shape, both at the government to government and business to business and people to people level. All of those things are very good, but I think we all know that there's been a big geopolitical debate about the world's superpowers, and China, of course, is central to that debate. So that debate is taking place in the UK, and I think that that is very healthy indeed, because, as we say in the UK, after this pandemic, we want to build back better. So if we have the debate, we can work out what the best way forward is.
Many Chinese readers and audience are curious about the super long Brexit procedure. Could you have introduced that story with several sentences?
A majority of British people voted to leave the European Union. We then spent a bit of time discussing the terms under which we would leave the European Union. So that was all the debate about a hard Brexit and a soft Brexit. We're now in the final stages of negotiating the arrangements, but we have been absolutely clear that on the 31st of December this year, that will be the end of negotiations. So if we haven't reached any particular agreement, the UK will revert to what we call WTO trading terms. That will give our businesses certainty, it will give people certainty about what they can do with their lives, and it will free up our resources from the very complicated debate. So the key date to watch now is the 31st of December this year, when all the negotiations finish and we just go ahead from there.
UK government permit Huawei in the 5G
Yes.
networks, but it was strongly opposed by the US government. So will the US pressure affected the UK and China cooperation?
So I would say that the UK always takes decisions in our own national interest. And so our national interest, like any country, is that we keep our people secure and that we give them opportunities for prosperity and economic growth. That's pretty fundamental. So when we took the decision about Huawei, it was with those things in mind. So we wanted to roll out 5G across the UK quickly so people have access to good broadband, fast digital services in business and in their personal lives. But we're also mindful of some of the risks that come from cyber attacks and things like that. So we took a decision on Huawei, which was that telecommunications companies in the UK, when they bid for these contracts, could include Huawei, but in a finite capacity. So they couldn't have all of the kit coming from Huawei. Something's changed, so the US has expressed stronger concern. The UK has regrettably continued to suffer cyber attacks which have come from China. And so, as you say, there was pressure on the Prime Minister to review that decision. And so he's remitted it to our National Cyber Security Centre to look again at the technical specifications and conclusions that they made. So that's what they're doing now, is having another technical review in the light of some of the changed circumstances.
But you just have mentioned some cyber attack, but have you found some relevance between the Huawei and the cyber attack?
No, we've found no correlation. We've found no problems with Huawei in the time that they've been in the UK. There's been some technical problems, but nothing malicious.
As we say that the COVID-19 pandemic has paralyzed the world for near half a year.
Yeah.
So how to promote such communication in the post-COVID-19 era? Do you have some suggestions or ideas?
There's lots of ways in which people can enjoy UK culture, whether they watch the football matches when they start coming on again. We've seen lots of theatre and films being live streamed so people can continue to enjoy performances. Obviously lots of the television popular favourites like Sherlock and Shaun the Sheep and Downton Abbey. So I think people have lots of opportunities to enjoy British culture and familiarise themselves with it. And I'm sure that we will be ready to welcome Chinese travellers again very soon.
My favorite British TV show is Prime Minister.
Oh, yes, that's a very good one, isn't it?
It's very interesting, and yes. I can see many politics, the real politics in that TV series.
We tried to break it up from the outside, but that wouldn't work. Now that we're inside, we can make a complete pig's breakfast of the whole thing. Set the Germans against the French against the Italians against the Dutch. The Foreign Office is terribly pleased. It's just like old times.
Is there any difference before the crisis and after the crisis to the normal readers?
There are probably two differences. The first is that less to do with the virus, but more to do with our Brexit, that from the 31st of December, we will be free to make economic and trade deals however we please around the world. And that's why we want to move forward our discussions with China about opening up market access, because we think that there is great benefit in working together. The UK is very strong in the services in the economy, China is very strong in manufacturing. And if we work together, we can really help accelerate our economic growth, which will be very important if the world goes into economic recession after COVID. And then the second thing that I want to underline is that the UK will remain open to Chinese visitors and Chinese investment. We are already one of the most open economies in the world. It's very easy to set up a business. We've talked about Huawei. There are lots of Chinese companies with presence in the UK, and we will continue to welcome them. Obviously, we need to stand up again the visas and the flights before people can come, but the principles will remain open, and we want to continue to have a very constructive and open relationship with China.